Bringing you the top stories from Bonners Ferry to St. Mary's and everywhere in between, this is the North Idaho Prepcast with Ryan Scaggs.
That's right. It is another edition of the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, brought to you by the Idaho Division of Public Health. Brandon Baney with Ryan Scaggs, talking about everything going on up north in District 1 in the state of Idaho. Ryan, what's shaking?
Nothing. It looks like you're missing some mittens in a chair because you're about to be Bernie Sanders sitting outside with that coat on.
Yeah, so funny story about the coat. We just ordered it. So I'm a bigger guy, right? I'm like 6'3", 6'4", 300 bills. And so it's hard to go like in store to buy clothing and like winter coats and stuff. So my wife ordered this for me. She is coming back home from a business trip today, and she wants to know how it fits. And as soon as we're done recording, she's going to be coming home. So I figured it would just be better to have the jacket on now, so I can show her how well it fits.
Is that a Carhartt too?
It's not a Carhartt.
Okay.
It is
I couldn't tell because I saw the patch there in the corner, but
it's a Columbia.
Looks like
Columbia.
So
Yeah. So
I mean,
yeah.
it might be what I need Friday night up in Sandpoint. So we'll see.
That's right. So yeah, if you want to see my Bernie Sanders jacket, you can watch the video of this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel and or the Facebook page. If you just want to hear the audio, you can do that, of course, at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts. All right, Ryan. Well, we talked about last week on the Prepcast that we probably were going to have to talk some state soccer because we thought there was going to be several teams from the north that would come through and deliver state titles. Only one did. I'm starting to think we might be the kiss of death for certain teams.
Yeah, and it was I think the team. I don't know if I actually picked them to win it all. I certainly said that they had a chance in the top four, and they fulfilled that. That was Lake City Girls winning it all in the 5A, but. Yeah, we were kind of the kiss of death for a few teams, and I feel bad, but a couple of the other teams pulled through. But Lake City Boys took fourth, so a good week for the T-Wolves down there. But I know that Lake City Boys wanted to win the state championship, but they ran into a couple buzzsaws along the way, obviously losing in that 3-4 match to Rocky Mountain too, in a tough match. But and then Sandpoint Boys taking second was awesome. So I mean, congratulations to the Bulldogs. I don't think that they really saw themselves in the title game. I don't know if we picked that either. I'm trying to remember. I know that they had a chance at some success, but they lost a tough one in the title game. But second place isn't a bad season by any means, especially coming out of the IEL, which is a tough league, and you're not going to get the best bids to state necessarily most of the time. But the Lake City Girls, coming from the 4 seed to win it all. Hats off to them. That was awesome. So that's a great run by them through the state tournament to win it all.
Yeah, and I predicted that Boise would be the team that would get to the championship from that bottom half of the bracket, and that's who Lake City defeated. It was a really awesome championship match. Lake City wins 1-0. The game-winning goal came with just 3:29 to play in regulation. Elliot Cordes scored the game-winning goal for Lake City. It was zeros for almost the entire match. What a dramatic win. Yeah,
a great win for them, and like you said, with adding the drama of the way, the goaltenders in that game played awesome. But the defensive battle, they just went back and forth up and down the field, and a chance for the T-Wolves to pull it out was awesome, getting that goal with just a little bit of time left. So, and Boise did threaten too late. And they, Lake City took care of business, and that's awesome. So congratulations to them.
Yeah, it's always nice to bring a state title home up north. You mentioned the Sandpoint Boys took second, which is great for them. And then at the 3A level, we talked about coming in how on the girls' side, Coeur d'Alene Charter had just been this dynasty, right? They had won, I think 5 of the last 6. So, they've only been playing soccer for like roughly 10 years, and they've been pretty much a powerhouse from the jump. They got upset in the opening round, which was crazy. The top team in 3A boys, Sun Valley Community School, and the top team in 3A girls, Coeur d'Alene Charter, both kind of these dynasties, both got upset on day one. But at least for the Panthers, a lot of teams, when they lose and they're heavy favorites at state and things like that, they kind of pack it in and shut it down. But I will give credit to Coach Stacy Smith and the Coeur d'Alene Charter girls for not packing it in and shutting it down and battling all the way back to win the consolation match.
Yeah, that consolation championship, I think, you always want to end on a high note. And like you said, we've seen teams, and we see it a lot in basketball, especially if you get an upset in the first round, it's kind of like take your ball and go home. But they battled, battled back and pulled out the consolation championship and won the sportsmanship award. So congratulations to them. I mean, they finished with the wins. You finish undefeated after that first round loss. You run through the rest of the bracket. You always want to end on that W. So and there's no easy games when you get to state. Obviously, getting upset in the first round can prove that when you get beat by an 8 seed. But no, the Charter girls, I mean, had a great season. I mean, it's a great program, and I know that they're probably looking at being the favorite next year coming into it anyways, because they're going to return a lot of those kids. So they're probably going to add to it too. I mean, I know that we've talked about the programs here up north now and how those youth teams are changing. Lake City girls, Coeur d'Alene Charter, Coeur d'Alene High School, they're all going to be loaded next year in soccer, and Sandpoint as well. Another team that missed out, having undefeated season, losing in the districts, and congratulations, hats off to Moscow for winning that consolation in the 4As. I know they're not in District 1, but they're in that IEL group, and they took care of business to come back and make it there, and did something that people probably didn't put on the radar with a losing record. To do that in the 4A ranks is pretty impressive. So the Bears put together something. So that IEL and even the IML, soccer is pretty strong here, and it's looking good for the next couple of years.
Yep, I agree 100%. They had a great showing at state, even if it was not the teams we were expecting. It's nice to have those pleasant surprises along the way.
Yeah.
So state volleyball is this week, Ryan. It's all up north in your neck of the woods. It's nice to see the North actually host a state event.
Yeah. And I mean, it's been up here for the last couple of years, which has been cool. But they do a great job. I mean, we've got great facilities up here. Lakeland High School's got an awesome gymnasium. Coeur d'Alene redid theirs and opened last year, adding some extra seating there. Lake City's got an awesome facility, and so is Post Falls. The arena at Post Falls is awesome as far as high school venues go. So it's a great facilities, a lot of hotel space up here in a time of year that the town kind of empties out with all the tourists gone, and it's a great opportunity to host a state event. And Post Falls is going to be taking on Lake City in the first round. So you got a local affair at least, and that's going to be happening over at Coeur d'Alene High School for the 5As, who's Coeur d'Alene's hosting the 5A tournament. Post Falls drawing the 2 seed, and Lake City making their way in on that play-in game. So obviously you got an IEL battle in round 1. You want to see both take advantage of the tournament, but you'd like to see them separated in the bracket, but that's not how it was seeded. So
it's the way it goes sometimes. So let's do just like last week with state soccer. We've got the brackets. We'll put them up on the screen. It kind of cuts off our faces halfway. It makes us kind of look like Two-Face. So I'm going to make us a little smaller there so it's not as apparent. And then, here are the that's football. Let me get volleyball.
As I say, that doesn't look.
Here we go.
We're just gonna pick based on mascots. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here is the 5A state volleyball bracket. If you're watching the video, you can see the bracket up on the screen. If you are listening to this, you can also go to our website, IdahoSports.com. We've got all the state volleyball brackets right there on the homepage as well. You can follow along as we talk about it. You mentioned it. Post Falls, the number 2 seed, playing 7th seeded Lake City. What's interesting with Post Falls is the way the Max Preps rankings worked this year, teams were only supposed to report matches that were best 2 of 3 or best 3 of 5. So a lot of times you go to these tournaments and you're playing pool play. It's like a best of 2. So those don't count. Post Falls had several tournaments, a couple in Washington and one in Lewiston at the start of the year. All those matches that they won didn't actually count towards their record because they were best of 2. And so because of that, they could have been, I really do think, the number 1 overall seed.
Absolutely.
But because they weren't able to report all of their matches, they did get dinged a little bit. But still, number 2, pretty impressive for, again, I talked about it coming in. I personally thought Coeur d'Alene was kind of the favorite just because they've kind of been the favorite up there the last several years. And so for Post Falls, this was really a nice season. And here they are competing as the number 2 seed overall against Lake City.
Yeah, and they're battle tested. I mean, they played a lot of the Spokane schools, which is a very strong volleyball league that GSL is. I mean, playing some of those tournaments. I got Post Falls in the title game. I really do. Just looking at who they've got and who they've played. They did get slided a little bit. I mean, I think in the rankings, like you talked about, but they got such a strong team, and especially, you look at some of the youngsters too. They've got height up front, so they do a great job. I really do. I have them in the title match. I don't necessarily want to make a prediction for a state championship, but they're gonna make some noise. Lake City, I think, can make noise in the consolations. They're playing great right now. They're on a roll. It would not surprise me if they make it to the consolation final. Because I'm obviously picking Post Falls to defeat Lake City in the first round. I've got Mountain View over Madison. Going to pull an upset. I always like the upset specials. And then I think Skyview is going to make it to the title match as well. So I've got Post Falls and Skyview in the championship.
Yeah, I think this is kind of the easiest one to predict because
Skyview is really good.
Skyview is so dominant that they beat the number one team in the country earlier this year. Assumption
they're going to win it all. Let's be honest.
I mean,
I'll make a prediction. Skyview's the champ, but I think Post Falls, they make it interesting in the championship match.
Yeah, but I agree. Post Falls could easily get there, but this is Skyview's deal to lose. So
yeah.
4A, we don't have anything to talk about because Lakeland, just like Sandpoint girls soccer, Lakeland was the number one seed at districts, and we're playing Moscow in the championship match. It went 5 sets, and they lost 3-2. So, everybody is sick of Moscow on the girls' side. Get out of here.
Spoiler this year, and Lakeland was up 8 in that final set. They only needed 1 point to put it away. Moscow scores 8 in a row and then puts them away in the clincher, and Moscow punches their ticket to state. So we'll have a new champ in 4A. Lakeland, I know, is disappointed because they had a solid team, and we talked to they're playing really well down the stretch, but Moscow comes back and plays spoiler again. Kind of the thorn in the side of the North right now. But hats off to the Bears getting to state.
Yep, absolutely. The 3A state tournament's going to be at Lake City High. We've got the Kellogg Wildcats seeded 5th. They will play 4th seeded Parma, and they're on the same side of the bracket as top-ranked Sugar Salem and 8th-ranked Snake River. What do you think about Kellogg's chances?
I think they've got that league was pretty tough too. We look at it. Kellogg's played a lot of big schools. So their record obviously doesn't look the greatest. I mean, they played down, I believe they played in that Lewiston tournament too. But they've played some of the bigger programs. They played Lakeland. They played some of the 4A teams. So they're tested. It wouldn't surprise me if they make it to the semis. Sugar's pretty dang good. There's a reason they're the number one seed. So, but I like their chances of placing at state for sure. I think if they're not going to, make it to the title match, beating Sugar, that's a tall task. I at least see them in that 3-4 match pretty easily. Parma's not bad either, but I'd like the the Kellogg's chances of getting there. So, and Timberlake, not to be slept on either. They're, a historical basketball school, but I know that, you look at the size of the front line that they've got in volleyball, at the net, they protect pretty well. So it wouldn't be surprising if they don't beat Fruitland, they could make some noise on the back end of the bracket in the consolations.
Yeah, so you've got 7th seeded Timberlake taking on 2nd seeded Fruitland, also on their side of the bracket, number 3 Kimberly and number 6 Weiser. I think we could easily see Timberlake and Kellogg meeting up, maybe on that consolation side, duking it out. Again, kind of like 5A. This is an easy one to call. Sugar Salem, overwhelming favorite, 35-0. They've beaten 5A schools. They've beaten 4A schools. They've only dropped like 4 sets all year.
I would like to see them play Skyview. Let's be honest. But
right.
That's obviously not in the mix. They might play them in club or something like that this summer. But it's 3A. The North can make a showing. I don't think that they're going to finish in the top 3. But I think that they could at least take home some hardware in the blood rounds, they say in wrestling.
Right. Right. Well, and that is where our state volleyball discussion ends, Ryan, because sadly there's not any other, at the 2A level. St. Mary's, we thought, had a chance against Orofino, but then they lost the play-in game at districts to Grangeville.
Yeah.
So then Grangeville played Orofino in that best of 3. The Maniacs, I do think, have sneaky potential in the 2A bracket for sure.
Yeah, those will be played at Lakeland High School. So,
yep.
It's good luck to the Maniacs. I mean, they're, we kind of share the district, so I guess we got to talk about them a smidge, but It's
I do think Orofino has some sneaky underdog potential and dark horse potential for sure. The 1As, we kind of touched on this last week, where Wallace won the 1A D1 District 1 tournament, and Clark Fork won the 1A D2 District tournament. Well, instead of awarding the district winners with a trip to state, they had to turn around and play a play-in match this past Saturday. Let's start with Wallace at the D1 level. They had to play Genesee, the third-place team from District 2. Got swept 3-0. And so for Wallace, it was disappointing because I know they had a really nice season and everybody was really excited. But to see them fall one half step short of state is kind of disappointing.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll touch on it in football too. But, obviously – you don't want to fault a team for being in a small conference. It's not anything they can control. So to only get a half bid, so you have to play in that play-in game, is an insult. I mean, a little bit. And splitting it with, the play-in game with the White Pine League or some of those teams down there in that Central Idaho, that District 2, those programs are all good. Genesee is just as good as Prairie and a lot of the other schools that are in that conference. So, it's to have them play in a play-in game against a team that Genesee could very well place at state is very tough to see. I mean, it really is difficult because you want to reward the teams that do what they're supposed to do at the berth to state. You expect to win your district. You expect to be going to state, and that's not necessarily the case. And, I hope that gets changed in the future. I know that football, it'll get adjusted a little bit with the 1A D2 ranks with Wallace and Lakeside being able to come back down, but which is going to make for a really competitive conference with Mole and St. Regis next year. But, we saw it in the 1A D2s with Clark Fork, who had a great season too, and they're a perennial, appearance at state too, and they lost to Deary 3-1. You don't want to slight these schools by giving them the play-ins. I mean, they play each other, the 1A D1 and 1A D2. That is a tough conference that they have. Yeah, they're different classifications, but they beat up on each other all year. And, they're very deserving, I think, of a trip to state, and it's tough. It really is difficult to see, and I hope that the state can rectify that moving forward. But we kind of have to deal with what we deal with right now.
Yeah, Clark Fork especially. I mean, the Wampus Cats are missing out on state for the first time since 2016. They've kind of been a fixture and historically a very good program too. That
absolutely
wins a lot. They kind of had to overcome some adversity on Saturday where they traveled for their play-in match to Lewiston, and I don't know what happened, but they didn't have their head coach. Yeah. She was able to kind of FaceTime with the team as the match was going on, but it was the JV coach who was leading Clark Fork in person in that match. And that's a lot to overcome just, from a psychological perspective. And so I think if Clark Fork, I don't want to use that as an excuse, but I really do think Clark Fork, 9 times out of 10 probably beats Deary in that matchup.
Yeah. I mean, we could go back to that Lakeland Moscow match. We saw what that happened there. I mean, how many times out of these teams that they get surprised in a play-in situation and the underdog wins. But yeah, Clark Fork being backed into a corner with a tough situation with their coach being gone. I mean, we're creatures of habit, let's be honest. And you're used to having that leadership role in front of you, especially as a kid, playing. You want your coach to be there because that's the voice that's in your head when you're playing. You can hear your adjustments and all that stuff. And coaches aren't all the same. Assistants have a different way of thinking, and sometimes they maybe don't have as much experience as the head coach, and that's why the head coach is there. So yeah, it's unfortunate the Wampus Cats missed out because they are a historically solid volleyball program. So it's, hats off to Deary and their chance to maybe make some noise down at Lewiston High School. But it's tough.
Yeah. Definitely. For sure. So state volleyball this week, we'll be cheering on the teams from the north. There aren't a ton, but at least they get to host. So it'll be exciting to see how they stack up and compete across the volleyball.
Yeah,
landscape.
I'll make a prediction that District 1 wins in the first round of the girls tournament.
At which level?
5A.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Because Post Falls and Lake City are playing each other. Yeah. Boy, really stepping out on a limb there.
Rough prediction there.
Yeah. Well, we'll take a break here on the North Idaho Prepcast, and when we come back, we'll open up those football brackets and really start breaking it down and analyzing how we think the teams up north are going to fare in this year's football postseason. We'll be back right after this message from the Idaho Division of Public Health on the North Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
It's time to start planning for back to school. That's why I got my kids vaccinated for COVID-19. Kids 12 and older can get vaccinated. The vaccines have been researched and tested. They're safe and they work. And I hope everyone will choose to get vaccinated too.
Welcome back to the North Idaho Prepcast. Brandon Baney with Ryan Scaggs talking about football. Here we go. The brackets are actually done. I don't have to crunch numbers anymore. It's such a relief.
Yeah, we're not we got to take off those green caps and turn off our little text light that we have next to our computer. So
green caps? Are you talking about the little visor?
A visor with the green lens on the top of it. So
yeah, it's not quite tax season yet. I'm never fully ready for tax season, but especially not during the fall.
So somebody be taxed this week because they got to pay some dues and beat some tough teams. So
there you go. Way to bring it back in, Scaggs. That's what we pay you the big bucks for.
The segue, yeah.
All right, well let's just start at the top with the 5A bracket. We have this wild Kansas City playoff on Monday between Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, and Lewiston, because backed into a corner last Friday night, Coeur d'Alene absolutely routs Lewiston.
Yeah, you don't want to back baby into a corner. Coeur d'Alene showed up, and you know their offense. Gosh darn, man, they took care of business and took Lewiston to the woodshed. And you know, from a couple of players that we didn't really expect on the offensive side, we more expected Isaiah to really take over on defense this year. We talked about him as a corner, but man, on offense, he went off against Lewiston, had a couple touchdowns. Bankston settled down. I mean, that was the one thing and it was kind of interesting because obviously we were doing the game at Sandpoint and Lakeland, but when I left Coeur d'Alene, because that's where I live, the weather kind of stunk. And I was wondering, like, how is Coeur d'Alene going to fare throwing the ball with inclement weather and in a rushing game kind of back and forth with Lewiston? Because, you know, Lewiston's running attack is so good. And Coeur d'Alene held Lewiston's running back to, I believe it was only like 41 yards rushing or something like that. And that was, yeah, I mean, the Vikings defense showed up to only hold Lewiston to a touchdown was huge. And then obviously in the tiebreak on Monday, that back and forth battle was insane. Took all 3 rounds because it's a double elimination situation in that one. And took all three rounds for Coeur d'Alene to pull it out and beat the Bengals.
Yep. So Coeur d'Alene, by winning the Kansas City playoff, wins the district. Lewiston finishes second. Post Falls finishes third, and unfortunately, that is where they could not finish. If they had finished first or second, Post Fall, all three teams would have been in the playoffs. But if Post Falls finished third, because of that big school winning percentage we talked about, they just got edged out by Bora in that category. So Post Falls just misses out. They're the first team out of the playoffs, which is too bad because I really do think in a vacuum, Post Falls is probably better than some of the teams that are in, like from the East, possibly. I don't want to disparage any teams, but, I look at Madison, right? And I'm like,
they got spanked by Lewiston at the beginning of the year.
Using the eye test, Post Falls is probably better, but that's just the way it goes, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think Post Falls, like I heard you talk with Scott Burton a little bit about it, about scheduling and how those rankings kind of work through and into the mix. But you talked, and that's in the 4A ranks, but it does apply to 5A teams and how you schedule. And Post Falls scheduled the 2 4A teams, Sandpoint and Lakeland, both playoff teams, but classification wise, those wins didn't really count for them because both those schools are under the threshold for the large school cutoff. So that was kind of a moot point. It was great for your overall record. Yeah, you got a couple wins out of that, or at least with Lakeland, you got the win out of Lakeland, but you lost to Sandpoint. But it didn't help them any for that playoff chance. And so, moving forward, they're going to continue to schedule as games. I don't see those getting canceled. But your non-league ones, you really kind of got to watch now how you schedule stuff when you end up in these situations. I see the tiebreakers going to be an annual thing now. I really do see the playing field leveling. And I think Lake City is getting to the point where they're going to start, pretty soon throwing their hat in the ring too, and having a say in that as well. So it's it's hard because in football, you can't add an extra week for a play-in, because I think that would have been the better solution. Would have been an extra round to where you could have let Post Falls and Bora settle it on the field. But that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles, and Post Falls didn't show up in the Kansas City tiebreak. I mean, let's just be honest. Yeah.
And I mean, think about they're a play away from winning the league, right?
Yeah.
They missed that field goal.
They're a kick away from going undefeated through the conference.
Yeah, which is just heartbreaking, but that is life and that is football sometimes. So
story of kickers. I mean, and I don't want to put pressure on that kid, but I mean, I've been in that situation too in high school where we were a kick away from winning League Two. So it's kind of a rough spot to be in.
Well, and I will say this in defense of kickers, there's probably lots of things the other players could have done to avoid being in that situation as well.
Absolutely. Right? Like not giving up a touchdown with 1 minute and 27 seconds left.
Right. So it's a bummer for Post Falls, but they'll be good. I mean, they bring back a lot of good players next year. So
yeah, their running attack is going to be really good next year.
Yep. So not anything too much to talk about with the 5A ranks, right? Coeur d'Alene gets the first round bye. Lewiston is going to play Capital. But for Coeur d'Alene, they're going to get the winner of Eagle and Bora. I will tell you right now, that's going to be Eagle.
Yeah. And Eagle's tough.
Eagle's tough, but it's not like last year where they were really good with Ben Ford, who was a great dual threat quarterback who's now at Boise State. Mm-hmm. Eagle's a little bit different. They lost their best player of the season on the opening quarter. Ethan Makita, really good slot back. They have another kid, Duarte, who transferred in from California. That's the thing with these Boise schools. They're all littered with kids from other states, Oregon, California, because we talked about it. People are moving into the state of Idaho. And of course, Coeur d'Alene sees that as well from Washington. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's going to be Eagle pretty easily. And in that matchup, I like Coeur d'Alene over. I think Coeur d'Alene right now, that Post Falls game was a real wake-up call for them.
Yeah.
And the way the bracket's looking, I like Coeur d'Alene to get to the title match.
I like what Coeur d'Alene, because I had that Post Falls game too. And we talked about, it was like, man, I don't know what's going on with their rushing attack. It just looked, I don't want to say they looked like they were asleep at the wheel against Post Falls, but obviously it was that homecoming week and everything else. And there's all the other noise going on. But man, what they did to Lewis in that woodshed beatdown was, everybody in the state kind of, I think, took notice. That it's like, yeah, they're still the Vikings. They're still the team that went to Seattle and beat, North Creek and some of those other schools. So, they're battle tested. Eagle's good. And I think people start to look at Southern Idaho and immediately go, oh, well, they all play each other and they're super tough. We're going to go ahead and get them. Coeur d'Alene at home, in the first week in November with a healthy offense now. I think Bankson played normal. He wasn't gimping around at all like he was against Post Falls. I'll take the Vikes. Absolutely.
Yep. I like Coeur d'Alene there. Let's move on to the 4A bracket where, again, if you're watching this on IdahoSports.com, you can see the bracket up on the screen. Maybe go full size on your screen because there's 16 teams here, so they're all kind of squeezed in. It's by far the largest bracket.
Yeah.
This was all seeded according to Max Prep's rankings. The top, with the exception of the top 5 teams, automatically go to the 5 district winners. And how about this? We talked about it. Sandpoint, we thought was going to finish 1 or 2 and host all the way through. Sandpoint is the number 1 overall seed. How about that for the Bulldogs?
Yeah, and not only are they the number 1 overall seed, but Minico's on the bottom half of the bracket too. Minico at the 3 to me was kind of a shocker. I know that, they went undefeated, but the schedule wise and strength of schedule and all that stuff, and impressive wins. You talked about it with Scott last week, with Pokey getting the 2 seed. I mean, Coeur d'Alene really lucking out with getting Emmett and Blackfoot on their side of the bracket. I think are both winnable games. The Bulldogs got a winnable game in round 1 with Mountain Home. We'll have that one here on IdahoSports.com. I'm excited to call that game because, you get a team playing in fall on the shores of Lake Pend Oreille. It's going to play to the favor of the Bulldogs for sure. And then if they run through the bracket, I mean, we're looking at a state title in the Kibbe Dome. So that's a title game up here up north would be pretty awesome to have.
I think this sets up so well for Sandpoint, and it
couldn't have gone any better. Absolutely.
Yeah, they basically control their own destiny. And so 4A's been kind of a hot mess this year, right? Everyone's just been beating up on each other. And I've kind of maintained since really mid-September that I thought Sandpoint was the best, most complete team in the 4A ranks.
I called it after the Coeur d'Alene game.
Right.
I'm saying week 2. It's like Sandpoint's going to be playing. They're going to be one of the top 4 teams.
And they still can't get any respect in the polls. Not that the polls matter, but
no.
They were 3rd in the media poll this week. I had them 2nd, but
people are looking at records. And I mean, they've got, 2 losses, one to Coeur d'Alene that was a 1 possession game and one to Homedale, who boat races everybody. So I don't put a lot of merit in the polls because you look at Sandpoint's roster and they were missing 2 of their better players. I mean, that were on the sideline in that game against Lakeland, and they still just routed the Hawks.
Yeah.
So close.
Right. So yeah, that was a big win for Sandpoint, playing the 16 seed Mountain Home. The only reason Mountain Home is in the playoffs is because it was predetermined that their league got 3 teams in. They finished 3rd. They haven't won in a long time. They won their games early. They beat Burley by a touchdown otherwise in the first game of the year. Otherwise, Burley is in that spot. This is easily I could name 3 or 4 teams that are more qualified to be in the playoffs than Mountain Home. It's not anything against the Tigers. They're working within the parameters of what was set up, but this is a slam dunk for Sandpoint right out of the get-go. So
yeah, I mean, this is like a true 1 versus 16 in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Like Absolutely. This is Duke and Prairie View A&M. Yeah.
Right, exactly. As we go to the bottom half of the bracket, that's where the Lakeland Hawks are residing. They got seeded number 11, and they will take on the 6 seed Skyline. This will be a game inside Holt Arena on Thursday night at 8:30. So a little Thursday night football. That's a game that we will have for you, the audio broadcast on IdahoSports.com. So 2nd year in a row, Lakeland gets in. 2nd year in a row, they got to travel to Pocatello for the first round.
And not only travel to Pocatello, but travel to Pocatello midweek on a Thursday. Was that due to the Bengals playing on Saturday in Holt?
Yes. So ISU has a home game Saturday, which means Thursday and Friday were the only days that were available. The Pocatello schools, I think I can't say for sure, but I think the Pocatello schools kind of get the first bite at the apple, so to speak, since they are partnered with Holt Arena all season, and they got the Friday games, right? Highland and Pocatello got the Friday games, so that leaves the other teams that want to play in there having to settle for Thursday. So
yeah, and that's tough. I mean, because I mean, just because of knowing the Lakeland staff, they weren't thrilled about a Thursday game. Let's be honest. So there was a little bit of a frustration. I mean, they're going to stay the night Thursday after the game, so they're going to travel, leaving early Thursday morning. Which sets up for that's a heck of a long day. That's a long bus trip.
Yeah, that's a long one.
As far as a draw, if you're going to be an at-large team, I think that they got a decent draw on who they play in the first round. Skyline is good. Let's be honest, but also they do have some holes in their armor. And if Lakeland's back at full strength and healthy, I know that their free safety was out last week. It was, I see them having a shot. I mean, they showed up last year in the playoffs and made a really interesting game in their first round game, losing a tough one on the road. But if they can get their offense rolling again, the Hawks got a puncher's chance.
Yep, I agree. They lost to Century last year, 17-14. Century was a semifinal team. Skyline, name brand recognition. People are going to look at that and go, wow, yep, Skyline's good. They're the defending 4A state champs. They're the number 6 seed overall. You look at their record, wasn't super impressive. Their max preps rating got boosted up because they played Rigby close and lost. That's really what boosted them up. So I think this is a very winnable game for Lakeland. It just depends. The travel factor is going to be significant.
Yeah.
As we
outlined. I mean, it's what's interesting about Lakeland too is that we've talked about it. You know, their defense was going to keep them in games all year, and it did, and it kept them competitive. I mean, the offense was the one that took time to kind of get rolling, and we didn't really see it happen until, you know, they won a couple close games, but then they just started blowing the doors off people for a couple weeks between Timberlake and Moscow, and then last week, I mean, Sandpoint had a defensive scheme that was just, I mean, lights out. They did what they had to do. What I will give Lakeland credit for is that their running attack is so dangerous. I mean, Cornish is one of the fastest kids in the state of Idaho at running back. You know, he had an 80-yarder that he busted off against Sandpoint. He only had to literally dodge one tackle, and he was gone. And it was just – so the offensive line is playing a lot better. I'll give them that. You know, they kept Suko from getting sacked last week. But they've got to be able to get the passing game going a little, and they have the threats. That's the thing. They have the threats on the outside between Waddington and a couple of other receivers, Richie Thomas. I mean, they're there. It's just they got to be able to get the ball out of Suko's hands, and if they can keep him clean, I'll give Lakeland a 40% chance to win. Like I really, Skyline's a good team, but Lakeland, so is Lakeland. Yeah.
Skyline's got a good defensive line, so that'll be the biggest challenge to overcome there. And they're not as explosive as last year's team was for Skyline. They really struggle to score points. They've been in some low-scoring defensive type games this year, which I think tilts it more towards Lakeland's style. So
the thing about Lakeland too is that what they lack in size, because they are a smaller team, man, they can get out and tempo you to death. I mean, if they get out and they start going no huddle or they go muddle huddle where it's just super quick and they're back on the line, they'll run you into the ground. They really will.
For sure. Let's move on to the 3A bracket as we look here. The 3As. And again, this is not a complete bracket yet because after these play-in games occurred, everyone will get reseeded. So Timberlake got a first-round bye for winning the conference. They're going to be seeded somewhere. You won't see them on the bracket yet because we don't know where they're going to be seeded at. The game we want to focus in on is Kellogg, the runner-up. They will be traveling to South Fremont to play a semifinal team from a year ago. That game's going to be played in Madison at the new football field there Friday afternoon at 2 p.m. I like Kellogg in this matchup. I'll tell you straight up. South Fremont is a team that's underwhelmed me a lot this year. Timberlake went to South Fremont, right, and played in the season opener, and South Fremont won. But since then, South Fremont has kind of had a backslide where they really struggle with athletic quarterbacks, and that's where Ripley Luna, I think, can make the difference for Kellogg. So I like Kellogg straight up in this road game.
That's a bold prediction because I was thinking South Fremont. I mean, yeah, Luna's a great quarterback, but South Fremont's quarterback's a pretty darn kid too. And because I was talking to Craig Shaver about that yesterday. Like, who did we kind of think about that game? You look at it. Obviously, we're stuck way up here in North Idaho and don't get to see a lot of South Fremont on film. Their quarterback represents pretty well, but yeah, I mean, you look at that. I mean, this is the time of year where you get scheming nightmares because you get a short week. You get short weeks to prepare. You don't get not necessarily going to get a ton of film from people because teams don't want to rat out their conference opponents. And maybe teams are very selective with what film they give you. So they may get like a week 2 film against, the Montana school or something like that. South Fremont, you get athletes in space. Kellogg's as good as anybody with their athletes. You get into playing in a box, like if you're going to be playing, in between the hash marks, and you get a team that's going to try to grind on you. That's where Timberlake beat Kellogg. Was just between the hashes. They just ran straight down their throat. So if Kellogg's defense plays well, yeah, I think Kellogg can win. Absolutely. If they struggle on the other side of the ball and their secondary has some lapses, South Fremont could take advantage of it.
Yeah, South Fremont is just a team that I can't figure out because you look on paper and you're like, these guys should be good. And they just, I don't know, they hit a slump in the middle of the season and lost to Sugar Salem. And I'm just not sure it's there, but it'll be interesting. 2A ranks, the bracket is set, but in terms of what's going on up north, it's the only regular season game that's actually still occurring. It'll be a Friday night showdown between St. Mary's and Grangeville, just like last year. The winner of that game will win the Central Idaho League and will advance to the quarterfinal round. Now, the conference champ would have gotten a bye into the quarterfinals anyway, so that's why they're able to play this game while the playoffs are happening simultaneously.
Yeah, I'm going to start the chainsaw on this one. I got the Loggers.
Okay, you've got
Lumberjacks. I got the Lumberjacks. Yeah, absolutely. I got the Lumberjacks in this one.
Tell me why.
They have everybody back. I think everybody's gotten, I don't want to say everybody's gotten COVID, but everybody's finally back for this game. I mean, they beat the brakes off of Orfino last week. I mean, they won that game. And, this is a birth to state. It's an experienced roster. Grangeville's reeling. I mean, they got smoked last week in their game, trying to pick up an extra one to fill some holes in their schedule. No, I got the Lumberjacks. I think that coming off of a win and a big win, and you're at home and you're playing with that state and Coach Teft back there calling plays. I mean, they're going to be, I'm going to take them for the punch to ticket to state.
Okay, I kind of favor Grangeville, but we'll see how it goes. Grangeville, the defending league champ, of course. Whoever wins that matchup, if we pull up the 2A bracket just super quick, whoever wins is going to be the 8 seed.
Yep. So. Yeah, so they'll be the 8 seed. I mean, they're going to travel.
They'll travel the number 1 West Side. That'll be 2-time defending state champs, Idaho best 27-game winning streak. They haven't lost since September of 2019, but
it's the moral victory. I mean, hey, we won league. Let's go play West Side.
Right.
But no, it's I think it should be a good game. I don't want to say a shootout. I think it'll be low scoring. I think if St. Mary's beats Grangeville, it's going to be like 14-13. They'll win on a missed extra point.
Okay. All right. We'll mark that down. We'll see how close you were next week when we revisit that. Let's move to the 8-man ranks, the 1A D1 level. Wallace. How about those Miners, huh? They defeated Lakeside on Friday. Then they had to turn around and do a Kansas City playoff on Monday. They win that after like it had to go 4 rounds, but they finally pulled it out. Wallace is a team that's got some momentum, but again, kind of like we were talking about the 2As, they got to play Oakley right away, which is tough.
Congrats. Yeah, good job. Now you get Oakley. And they're playing in Riggins, so they got to travel a little bit too. I mean, good on Oakley for cutting that distance in half, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm going to take Oakley. Obviously, I think that they're one of the better teams in the state. You look at them, Prairie, Raft River, they're all favorites. Lapway's got a puncher's chance on the outside to make some noise too. They've got athletes. I mean, we know what they can do in basketball. Well, congrats on their coach for getting half that basketball team to turn out for football this year because they can run. They've been putting points on everybody. But I don't really give the Miners a great chance, and that's nothing against them and what they've been able to do against Lakeside. It goes back to the conversation, though, of, you want to see league champs not get slighted so hard, give them a little bit better shot for taking care of what they do. You're in a 2-team league. It's going to change next year, obviously, but that's tough. You go win, and then you win in a tiebreaker, and then you go play Oakley in the first round. It's like there's no real kudos or attaboys for you in that game because you have to travel as a league champ too.
Yeah, they seed the 12 teams based on Max Prep's rankings. The top 4 automatically get buys, and Wallace was the 5th league champion, and they got the very last seed, the 12th seed overall, which again, why can't I look at all these brackets, and the only one that seems to me to do it correctly is the 4A.
Yeah.
Right. 4A, top 5 seeds automatically go to the district champs, and then we seed everybody else based on the at Max Prep's rankings.
Yeah, whoever's left gets shuffled into the mix. Yeah.
Yep.
That makes no sense.
Yeah. So,
or even I'll give 3A 2. I mean, they reward their champions with the bye.
Right.
So I mean, that's not too far off. But when they go and reseed everything is when it's kind of like, okay, that makes sense. But this not reseeding and then not giving, props to the champions. Wallace, that kind of hurts a little bit. They could be playing a game, it maybe Lake City High School hosting that game or something like that. Instead, you go win league, and now you get to go travel halfway across the state.
Right. Now, I will say for the 1A D1 ranks, they have a rule amongst all the coaches that if your first round game is more than a district away, you have to go play somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
So it's not like Wallace could have hosted a game at Lake. So they still would have had to travel, but maybe the matchup is different, right?
Yeah. I mean, they could have been playing, one of the at-large team or one of the, second or third place team from the CIL. I mean, that they could have been playing I don't know how the seeding would have shook out, but I want to say it's a disservice to them a little bit because of the matchup that they did get. I mean, it would have made sense to maybe play like a Clearwater Valley or Potlatch or something like that. But yeah.
Yep. So good luck to Wallace. That game will be Friday at 4 p.m. So all the times on here are local time. So 4 p.m. in Riggins is 3 p.m. in Wallace.
Yep.
So that'll be a good matchup in Riggins, neutral site game there. 1A D2 we don't have to talk about yet because Mullen St. Regis has a bye, and then they're going to have to travel to Cary more than likely, and we can talk about the problems with that bracket and all of that kind of stuff on next week's show because we've run long here, Ryan.
We're going to keep complaining, yeah.
We really do. I mean, it does seem like we complain a lot about the North Idaho stuff, but I don't know. There's just like easy solutions, I feel like, to some long-standing problems.
I think it's, there's the historical things that people want to really look at, and I think that they're giving more weight to historical finishes than what's actually logical and fair, and what would be the best solution for kids. Obviously, I know that we can't ride on the IHSAA too much because we do state tournament broadcasts for them, but there are some very easy solutions. I think that just strip away names of teams and just look at like what would make the most sense. If you have a champion here and a champion there and a champion there, like, do you want to reward them or not? And that's where I think it needs to come down to, like, I mean, people make the other side of the argument, like, well, we've got a team that's 2-7 that's going to state as a league champ, and then you have a third place team that's 8-3. I mean, okay, whatever, but I mean, they did what they were supposed to do and won their league, so reward them.
Yep. I agree 100%. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, lots of volleyball and football action to digest this week. We will be updating it all on our site, IdahoSports.com. We'll update the brackets. We'll update the scoreboard. So just keep checking back there. Really, you should just save it on your bookmarks tab on your browser. But yeah, you definitely want to be checking out
your homepage.
Yeah, even better. Make it the homepage. It is my homepage. So
yeah,
if you want to be like me and wear a coat inside, then
you're just missing your mittens.
That's right. I'm just missing the mittens. All right. That'll do it for this edition of the North Idaho Prepcast. Ryan, Scaggs, as always, thank you. It's been a blast.
Yeah, been awesome. We'll see you next week.
All right. I'm Brandon Bainey. We'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.